In 1965, a Chinese grandmother could feed a family of 8 for an entire winter using nothing but what she stored inside a single wooden cabinet. No refrigerator, no plastic wrap, no MSG. Just 25 pantry techniques passed down for over 1,000 years. Then, modernization arrived, and almost overnight these methods were pushed out of Chinese kitchens, labeled outdated, peasant-style, even unsafe. Most were quietly banned from restaurants. Many disappeared from cookbooks entirely by the 1980s. But now, scientists are confirming that these were not just survival tricks. They were genuine nutritional genius, and the wellness industry is quietly selling them back to us at premium prices. Tonight, I am giving you all 25, counting down to number 1. And one of them, number 5, is something you have almost certainly been pouring down your kitchen drain every time you cook. Number 25, the salt-rubbed cutting board. Every Friday evening in 1960s Chinese households, the wooden chopping block was scrubbed down with coarse rock salt and a damp cloth, never with soap. The salt was rubbed in vigorous circles across the surface, then left for 10 minutes, then rinsed off with hot water and dried in the sun. This was banned in commercial kitchens during the modernization period because it was considered unhygienic compared to chemical sanitizers. But food microbiologists now confirm that coarse salt physically draws moisture out of bacteria through osmosis, killing them more effectively on porous wood than synthetic detergents, which only sit on the surface. The sun exposure adds ultraviolet sterilization. Your cutting board lasts longer, smells cleaner, and does not absorb harsh chemicals that leach into your next meal. Number 24. The triple rice rinse. Chinese grandmothers rinsed white rice 3 times in cold water before cooking, swirling it gently with their hand until the water ran from cloudy to clear. This practice was actively discouraged during the 1970s and 1980s when rice was being marketed as quote-unquote pre-washed and the rinse step was called wasteful. But modern food science has shown that this triple rinse removes excess surface starch, talc residues used in milling, and importantly, a significant portion of inorganic arsenic, which naturally accumulates in rice patties. The resulting rice cooks fluffier, digests cleaner, and is measurably lower in heavy metal exposure. One simple step that takes 90 seconds is now considered essential by toxicologists studying long-term dietary risk. Number 23. Kombu in the bean pot. When cooking dried beans, lentils, or chickpeas, Chinese cooks dropped a small strip of dried kelp called kombu or haidai into the pot. This was dismissed in the 1980s as a peasant superstition for stretching food. But scientists studying the digestibility of legumes have discovered that compounds in kelp, particularly glutamic acid and certain enzymes, break down the indigestible sugars in beans that cause bloating and gas. The kelp also dramatically reduces cooking time and adds bioavailable iodine and minerals to the dish. Western nutritionists are now selling this exact technique as a gut health hack, charging premium prices for kelp strips that your grandmother bought for pennies. Number 22. Dried lotus seeds for porridge. A small jar of dried lotus seeds sat in every traditional Chinese pantry, ready to be tossed into morning rice porridge or congee. The practice fell out of favor when oatmeal and Western breakfast cereals took over urban Chinese diets in the 1990s. Modern phytochemistry has now identified lotus seeds as one of the highest natural sources of plant-based protein among traditional grains, with strong levels of magnesium, potassium, and a unique alkaloid that has been linked in early studies to improved sleep quality and lower nighttime cortisol. Soak the dried seeds for 1 hour before adding them to porridge, and you reintroduce a nutritional pillar that an entire generation forgot existed. Number 21. Yellow rock sugar instead of white. In 1960s, Chinese kitchens, white refined sugar was rare. Yellow rock sugar, called Bing Tang, made from crystallized cane juice with the molasses still present, was the standard sweetener for braises, soups, and tonics. White sugar replaced it almost completely during industrial sugar refining campaigns. Food scientists have since found that yellow rock sugar contains trace minerals like iron, calcium, and potassium that are stripped out of refined sugar, and its slower dissolution rate creates a smoother, more rounded sweetness in braised dishes like red-cooked pork. The flavor difference is so noticeable that high-end modern Chinese restaurants have begun importing rock sugar back into their kitchens after decades of using the bleached alternative. Number 20. Ginger stored in damp sand. Fresh ginger root was buried in a small clay pot filled with slightly damp river sand, kept in a cool corner of the kitchen. This kept the ginger fresh, plump, and full of essential oils for 2 to 3 months. Refrigeration was praised as superior in the 1980s, but ginger stored cold loses its volatile compounds rapidly and often develops mold at the cut edges. Modern food preservation researchers confirm that sand storage maintains the perfect humidity envelope around the rhizome, preventing both dehydration and rot, while keeping the gingerol content, which is the active anti-inflammatory compound, at near harvest levels for 10 weeks or longer. A clay pot of sand on your counter outperforms a plastic bag in your fridge by every measure that matters. Number 19. Bamboo charcoal in the rice jar. A small wrapped piece of activated bamboo charcoal was placed at the bottom of every household rice container. It was dismissed as folk superstition during the modernization period and replaced by airtight plastic bins. But material science has now confirmed that bamboo charcoal is one of the most porous natural materials on Earth, with a surface area of over 700 square meters per gram in some forms. It actively absorbs moisture, ethylene gas, and the pheromones that attract rice weevils, keeping a 50-pound sack of rice fresh and bug-free for over a year without any chemical pesticide. Premium Japanese kitchen brands now sell exactly this product as a luxury item. Number 18. Tea-smoked poultry. Before factory-produced liquid smoke flavorings, Chinese cooks smoked chicken and duck over a mixture of black tea leaves, brown sugar, and uncooked rice inside a sealed wok. The technique was largely banned from urban apartment cooking during the 1990s due to smoke regulations and faded out of home kitchens. Food chemists now recognize this method as one of the cleanest forms of smoking because the smoke is short, hot, and contains far fewer of the carcinogenic compounds that long cold smoking produces. The tea polyphenols also act as antioxidants that bind to the meat surface, partially protecting it from oxidation. Restaurants charging $40 a plate for tea-smoked duck are reviving a method your great-grandmother used every weekend. Number 17. Star anise in savory dishes. Modern Western cooks know star anise only as a sweet baking spice. But in 1960s Chinese kitchens, it was used primarily in braises, stocks, and bone soups. It was pushed out of standardized restaurant menus during simplification campaigns in the 1980s. Pharmacological studies have since identified shikimic acid in star anise as the same precursor compound used to manufacture the antiviral drug Tamiflu. Beyond that, the spice contains anethol, which has demonstrated antibacterial and digestive stimulating properties in clinical research. Adding a single star to your beef stew not only deepens the flavor immensely, but also delivers a real, measurable wellness benefit. Number 16. The 24-hour bone broth. In 1960s, rural Chinese kitchens, a large clay pot of pork or chicken bones simmered on the back of the stove for 24 hours straight, sometimes longer. The pot was kept warm overnight using residual coals. Modernization brought bouillon cubes and instant stock powders, and the long simmer method was abandoned as wasteful of fuel. Now, nutritional science has identified collagen-derived peptides, glycine, proline, and glucosamine in long-simmered bone broth at levels impossible to replicate in any commercial product. These compounds are linked to joint health, gut lining repair, and improved sleep through their glycine content. The same broth your great-grandmother made for 1 penny is now sold in glass jars for $12 a serving. Number 15. Goji berries in daily tea. A small handful of dried red goji berries, called gu qi zi, was added to almost every cup of afternoon tea in traditional Chinese households. The practice declined during the modernization of beverage culture, replaced by bottled drinks. Modern antioxidant research has placed goji berries among the top 10 highest-scoring foods on the ORAC scale, which measures the ability to neutralize free radicals. They contain zeaxanthin in unusually high quantities, a compound now recognized as crucial for retinal health and the prevention of age-related macular degeneration. 1 tablespoon per day, dropped into hot water, was the foundation of an eye health practice that ophthalmologists are only now beginning to understand. Now, those first 11 hacks were already serious knowledge, but I need you to stick with me here, because the next group is where this whole story gets really interesting. Numbers 10 through 5 are the methods that elite chefs and wellness clinics are right now quietly charging premium prices for, while pretending they are brand new wellness discoveries. And specifically, number 5 involves a kitchen liquid that you have almost certainly been throwing away every single week of your adult life without realizing what you were losing. This one piece of knowledge alone is worth saving this video for. Number 14. Lotus leaf wrapping for steaming. Before aluminum foil and parchment paper, Chinese cooks wrapped sticky rice, fish, and chicken in dried lotus leaves before steaming. The leaves were soaked in warm water until pliable, then sealed around the food. Modern food packaging pushed this aside as inconvenient, but food chemists have since identified that lotus leaves release subtle aromatic compounds during steaming that infuse the food with a distinctive earthy fragrance, while also acting as a natural moisture retention barrier that no synthetic wrap can replicate. Even more interesting, the leaves contain natural antimicrobial flavonoids that subtly preserve the food during the cooking process. This is why steamed lotus leaf rice still tastes more complex and satisfying than the same dish in foil. Number 13. Aged tangerine peel. Called chen pai, this is dried tangerine or mandarin peel that has been aged for 3 years minimum, often much longer. A small jar sat in every traditional Chinese pantry, used in soups, braises, and digestive teas. Industrial flavoring extracts replaced it almost completely by the 1990s. Phytochemical studies have identified that aging concentrates the bitter compounds in citrus peel, particularly hesperidin and synephrine, which have demonstrated digestive, anti-inflammatory, and even mild metabolic effects in controlled studies. A 10-year aged chen pai can sell for over $500 per pound today, but you can easily make your own by drying organic tangerine peels and storing them in a sealed glass jar in a cool, dark cupboard for at least 36 months. Number 12. Rice water pickling. The cloudy water from rinsing rice was never poured down the drain in a 1960s Chinese kitchen. It was saved and used as a starter liquid for pickling vegetables, particularly mustard greens and radishes. This was discouraged when commercial vinegar pickling was promoted as more sanitary. But microbiologists have now confirmed that rice rinse water contains beneficial wild lactobacillus bacteria, the same family of probiotics that drive natural fermentation in kimchi and sauerkraut. Using rice water as the base creates a gentler, more probiotic-rich pickle than straight vinegar, supporting gut microbiome diversity in ways that vinegar pickling cannot. This is exactly the kind of fermented food that gut health researchers are now urging Westerners to add back into their diets. Number 11. Slow-rendered pork lard. In 1960s Chinese kitchens, the primary cooking fat was pork lard, called zhu yu, slowly rendered at home from fat back over several hours. Industrial seed oils like soybean and corn oil replaced it during the heart health campaigns of the 1980s when saturated fats were demonized. The recent reversal in nutritional science is dramatic. Researchers have now identified that home-rendered lard contains high levels of stable saturated fats and monounsaturated oleic acid, the same fat that makes olive oil healthy, while having a much higher smoke point and producing none of the oxidized aldehyde compounds that seed oils release at high temperatures. Stir-fries made with lard are not only more flavorful but, by modern standards, are also significantly less inflammatory than those cooked in industrial vegetable oils. Number 10. Mother dough for steamed buns. Every traditional Chinese kitchen kept a small jar of fermented mother dough called lao mian that was used as the leavening agent for steamed buns, mantou, and bao. Commercial baking powder and instant yeast replaced it almost universally by the 1980s. But food fermentation researchers now recognize that a properly maintained mother dough contains a complex community of wild yeasts and lactic acid bacteria that pre-digest the gluten and starches in flour, making the resulting bread far more digestible and lowering its glycemic impact significantly. People who cannot tolerate commercial bread often have no issue digesting traditionally fermented Chinese steamed buns. The same trend driving the sourdough revival in the West is essentially a rediscovery of this exact pantry tradition. Number 9. Home fermented black bean paste. A small earthenware crock of fermenting black beans called dou qi sat in the back corner of nearly every traditional Chinese kitchen. The fermentation took weeks to months, producing a deeply umami paste used to flavor stir-fries, fish, and soups. Mass-produced bottled black bean sauce, often heavily laden with preservatives and stabilizers, replaced it almost entirely. Food scientists have since identified naturally fermented black beans as one of the richest dietary sources of nattokinase-related enzymes and bioavailable vitamin K2, the latter being increasingly linked to cardiovascular and bone health in recent research. The bottled supermarket version provides almost none of these benefits. The crock version was a quiet daily medicine. Number 8. The clay pot slow cook. Chinese cooks used unglazed clay pots called sha guo for slow braising meats, simmering soups, and cooking rice. Aluminum pots and pressure cookers replaced them across China during the industrial cookware boom. Material science research has now confirmed that the microporous structure of unglazed clay allows for an incredibly even low and slow heat transfer that breaks down tough connective tissues and develops flavor compounds that no metal pot can match. The clay also leaches small amounts of trace minerals into the food and absorbs none of the harmful compounds associated with non-stick coatings or aluminum reactivity with acidic ingredients. A $2 clay pot from a Chinese market outperforms a $200 non-stick pot in nearly every nutritional measure. Number 7. Salt-cured egg yolks. Before refrigeration was common, Chinese households preserved egg yolks by burying whole duck or chicken eggs in a mixture of salt, ash, and lime for 30 days. The resulting salted yolks were used to flavor congee, rice cakes, and pastries. Modern food preservation pushed this technique to the margins, but culinary chemists in high-end restaurants have rediscovered that the slow salt cure produces a yolk with deeply concentrated umami, transformed protein structure, and a buttery texture impossible to achieve any other way. Some of the most expensive Michelin-starred dishes in the world today feature a single grated salt-cured yolk as a finishing flavor. The technique your great-grandmother used to preserve eggs in summer is now culinary art. Number 6. Warm water with every meal. Chinese pantries in the 1960s always had a kettle of warm water on the stove. Cold drinks with meals were considered harmful to digestion, and warm water or warm tea was served instead. Western refrigeration culture brought ice water into Chinese dining in the 1990s, and the warm water tradition was dismissed as primitive superstition. But gastroenterology research has now confirmed that cold liquids slow gastric emptying and constrict the blood vessels around the stomach, impeding the breakdown of fats and proteins, while warm water relaxes the digestive system, supports enzyme activity, and may even help dissolve fats more efficiently in the stomach. Your grandmother had figured out something that took medical imaging decades to confirm. Number 5. Triple-soaked dried mushrooms. Dried shiitake, wood ear, and other Chinese mushrooms were never simply rehydrated in one bath of water. They were soaked 3 times, first in cold water for 30 minutes to remove dust, then in warm water for 2 hours to plump them fully, then a brief final rinse. Each soaking liquid was kept and used. The dust water was discarded, but the warm soaking liquid was added to soups and stocks. Industrial food production pushed canned mushrooms forward and abandoned the multi-step soak entirely. Food chemists have since confirmed that the triple soak method extracts the maximum umami compounds, particularly guanylate and glutamate, into the cooking liquid, creating a natural flavor enhancer that rivals MSG without any of the controversy. Every cup of soaking liquid you have ever poured down the drain was a tablespoon of pure liquid umami. We are now down to the final 4, and these are what I am calling the absolute genius level. If you remember nothing else from this video, remember these last 4 pantry secrets, because they each represent a different category of forgotten wisdom that science has now thoroughly vindicated. Number 4. Eating the whole fish. In traditional Chinese cuisine, fish was never filleted and served as a boneless slab. The whole fish was steamed, and the diners ate the cheek meat, the eye, the skin, and gnawed every bone clean. Heads and tails were saved to make fish stock the next day. Western influence taught urban Chinese to discard fish heads and bones as unappetizing by the 1990s. But nutritional research has now identified fish heads as one of the highest natural sources of bioavailable omega-3 fatty acids, particularly DHA, which is concentrated in the brain and eye tissue. Fish bones, when softened in long stalks, deliver calcium in a form the body absorbs more readily than supplements. Whole fish eating delivers nutrients in a single meal that would otherwise require 5 or 6 separate supplement bottles. Number 3. Ginger and red date tea for women. In 1960s Chinese households, a small jar of dried red dates, called hong zhao, and another of dried ginger slices, sat ready for the daily preparation of a warming tea for the women of the family, especially during cold months and certain times of the menstrual cycle. The practice was widely dismissed in modernized urban areas as outdated tradition. But clinical studies have now confirmed that red dates are one of the highest plant sources of bioavailable iron and vitamin C in a single food, making the iron unusually well absorbed. The ginger compounds enhance circulation and reduce inflammation, which has been correlated in research with reduced menstrual cramping. The combination, simmered together in water for 15 minutes daily, was a quiet, generations-deep practice of nutritional and hormonal support. Number 2. The marrow soup ritual. Before modern infant formula and protein powders, Chinese mothers fed their children and elderly relatives a soup made from slow-simmered pork or beef marrow bones cracked open at the joint, with the marrow itself scooped directly into the bowl. This practice was actively discouraged in the 1980s due to cholesterol fears. Modern nutritional science has completely reversed that position. Bone marrow is now recognized as one of the most nutrient-dense foods on Earth, containing concentrated stem cell precursors, alkyl glycerides linked to immune function, conjugated linoleic acid, and exceptionally bioavailable forms of vitamin A, K2, B12, and iron. A single bowl of marrow soup delivers more dense nutrition than a multivitamin. It was once considered a poor person's meal. It is now sold in upscale wellness markets for $15 a serving. And the final hack. Number 1. The morning ginger honey vinegar tonic. In countless Chinese households of the 1960s, the day began with a single small cup of warm water mixed with 1 slice of fresh ginger, 1 teaspoon of raw honey, and 1 teaspoon of rice vinegar, sipped slowly on an empty stomach. This was considered the foundation of daily wellness and was practiced by all generations within the family. As convenience foods and packaged breakfasts took over urban Chinese mornings, this ritual was almost completely lost by the 1990s. Modern research has now examined every ingredient. Ginger has been shown to improve gastric motility and reduce nausea. Raw honey contains enzymes, prebiotics, and antimicrobial compounds. Rice vinegar may modestly improve insulin sensitivity and slow post-meal blood sugar spikes. Together, the combination prepares the digestive system, supports the gut microbiome, and stabilizes blood sugar before the first meal of the day. It is now sold as a quote-unquote functional wellness shot in health food stores for $8 a bottle. Your great-grandmother made it for 3 cents and called it breakfast. That is all 25 banned Chinese pantry tricks from the 1960s that scientists are finally admitting were genuine genius. None of these require special equipment or exotic ingredients. Most of what you need is already sitting in your kitchen, waiting for you to remember how your grandparents actually used it. Share this video with someone who loves real food wisdom. Drop your favorite trick in the comments and let me know which one you are going to bring back into your kitchen this week. Subscribe because we have so much more coming. Until then, eat like your great-grandmother did, and your body will thank you for it.